Number 1. Jabba's vocal secrets. When you hear Jabba the Hutt's menacing growls and guttural laughter echoing through his palace on Tatooine, you're actually listening to one of the most ingenious sound design experiments in cinematic history. The voice that strikes fear into smugglers across the galaxy wasn't created by a single actor or even a human at all, but rather through an extraordinary blend of animal sounds that would make a zoo jealous. Sound designer Ben Burtt, the mastermind behind Star Wars' iconic audio landscape, crafted Jabba's distinctive voice using a fascinating combination of creature sounds. The primary foundation came from a large dog's deep, threatening growl, providing that rumbling bass that makes Jabba sound so imposing. But Burt didn't stop there. He layered in sounds from bears, walruses, and even slowed down human vocalizations to create those punctuating vocal spikes that occur when Jabba gets particularly agitated or amused. The result was a voice that felt both alien and primal, perfectly matching the character's savage nature. What makes this even more remarkable is how Burt manipulated these sounds using analog equipment available in the early 1980s. He slowed down portions of the recordings, pitched others up or down, and carefully edited them together to create what sounded like actual speech patterns. The legendary sound engineer spent weeks in post-production, matching each grunt, growl, and laugh to the puppet's mouth movements, ensuring that every vocalization felt natural and intentional. This revolutionary approach to alien voice creation became a hallmark of Star Wars sound design that influenced the entire film industry. Rather than simply having actors speak in funny accents or use electronic voice modulators, Burt pioneered the technique of building completely alien languages from organic sounds found in nature. This method was so successful that it influenced how creature voices were created in countless films that followed, establishing a new standard for bringing non-human characters to life through audio. The technical brilliance extends beyond just mixing animal sounds. Burt had to consider the acoustic properties of Jabba's supposed anatomy. Since Jabba is portrayed as a massive slug-like creature, his vocalizations needed to sound like they were coming from a large, cavernous throat. This required additional reverb and resonance effects to make the voice feel physically grounded in the character's imposing body mass. The final voice track actually consists of over 40 different sound elements layered together, creating a vocal signature that remains instantly recognizable decades after Return of the Jedi's release. Think you know every Star Wars secret? Smash that new hype button to show your excitement, and let us know which weird fact blew your mind the most in the comments below. Number 2. Purple lightsaber origins. The story behind Mace Windu's iconic purple lightsaber is one of the most delightfully straightforward examples of actor input, directly shaping Star Wars lore. When Samuel L. Jackson was cast as the powerful Jedi Master for Attack of the Clones, he had one very specific request that would end up creating one of the most recognizable weapons in the entire saga. Jackson approached George Lucas with what seemed like a simple ask. He wanted his lightsaber to be purple. His reasoning was both practical and personal. During the massive arena battle on Geonosis, Jackson knew there would be dozens of Jedi fighting simultaneously on screen, all wielding the traditional blue and green lightsabers. As one of cinema's most charismatic actors, Jackson wanted to ensure that audiences could easily spot his character during the chaotic fight sequences. Purple would make Mace Windu instantly identifiable in any crowd. Lucas initially hesitated because purple lightsabers had never appeared in Star Wars canon. The established lore suggested that lightsaber crystals came in specific colors based on their origin and the Jedi's connection to the Force. Blue typically indicated a Jedi Guardian focused on combat, while green represented Jedi Consulars who emphasized Force abilities and diplomacy. Purple was completely uncharted territory in the galaxy far, far away. However, Jackson's enthusiasm and the practical benefits of the request convinced Lucas to expand the mythology. The decision to include purple lightsabers required the development of new lore to explain their existence within the Star Wars universe. Eventually, expanded universe materials established that purple lightsabers were incredibly rare, created when a Jedi had mastered both light and dark aspects of the Force without falling to either extreme. This made perfect sense for Mace Windu, who was known for his mastery of Vapad, a lightsaber combat form that channeled controlled aggression. The purple lightsaber became so iconic that it influenced merchandising decisions for years. Purple lightsaber toys became some of the most sought-after collectibles, and the color was eventually incorporated into various video games and animated series. Jackson's simple request had inadvertently created an entirely new category of Jedi weaponry that expanded the mythology in meaningful ways. The success of this edition demonstrated how collaborative filmmaking could enhance established universes when creative input came from unexpected sources. Number 3. Real animal inspirations. The creative process behind Star Wars' most beloved alien characters reveals a fascinating truth. Sometimes the best alien designs come from looking right here on Earth. George Lucas and his team of designers drew inspiration from real animals in ways that were both obvious and surprisingly subtle, creating characters that felt familiar yet otherworldly. Yoda's design process involved one of the most interesting combinations of inspirations in film history. Stuart Freeborn, the makeup artist responsible for bringing the Jedi Master to life, primarily based Yoda's facial features on his own aged appearance, giving the character those distinctive wrinkles and wise eyes. However, the most unexpected influence came from Albert Einstein's iconic photograph, where his hair appears wild and unkempt. Freeborn used Einstein's facial structure, particularly around the eyes and forehead, to give Yoda that unmistakable look of ancient wisdom. But there's an even stranger element to Yoda's creation that most fans never discover. Freeborn also incorporated features from photographs of ancient tortoises and wise-looking monkeys that he found particularly expressive. The way certain primates have large, contemplative eyes that seem to convey deep intelligence inspired Yoda's most recognizable facial characteristic. This animal influence explains why Yoda's expressions feel so natural and emotionally readable despite his completely alien appearance. Chewbacca's origin story is equally charming and much more straightforward. George Lucas was driving with his Alaskan Malamute named Indiana, and the large, furry dog was sitting in the passenger seat with the wind blowing through his fur. Lucas looked over at his canine companion and was struck by how the dog's posture and shaggy appearance resembled that of a co-pilot. This moment of inspiration directly led to the creation of Chewbacca as Han Solo's loyal companion. The connection goes deeper than just visual inspiration. Indiana's personality traits heavily influenced Chewbacca's character development. The dog was known for his loyalty, protective instincts, and surprisingly gentle nature despite his imposing size. These exact characteristics became fundamental aspects of Chewbacca's personality throughout the Star Wars saga. Even Chewbacca's famous bowcaster was designed to reflect a hunter's instincts while maintaining the character's essentially noble nature. What makes these animal inspirations so brilliant is how they tap into subconscious recognition. Audiences immediately understand Yoda's wisdom because we associate those contemplative eyes with ancient knowledge, even if we can't consciously identify why. Similarly, Chewbacca feels like the perfect loyal companion because his design triggers our understanding of canine devotion and protection. Number 4. Podrace CGI nightmares. The pod racing sequence in the Phantom Menace represents one of the most technically ambitious and problematic visual effects challenges that industrial light and magic had ever attempted. What audiences saw as a thrilling high-speed chase through Tatooine's canyons was actually the result of months of technological struggle and creative problem-solving that nearly derailed one of the film's most important scenes. When George Lucas first conceived the pod race, computer graphics technology in the late 1990s was still relatively primitive compared to today's standards. The sequence required rendering massive environments, dozens of racing vehicles, crowds of thousands of spectators, and complex particle effects for dust, debris, and explosions. Each pod racer needed to feel unique in design and movement, while maintaining realistic physics during high-speed maneuvers through rocky terrain. The initial CGI tests were, frankly, disasters. Early versions of the racing sequence looked unconvincing and artificial, with pod racers that moved like they were floating rather than grounded in physical reality. The computer models lacked the subtle details that would make them feel like actual mechanical vehicles, and the lighting didn't properly interact with the desert environment. Lucas reportedly watched early test footage and declared it unusable, sending the effects team back to the drawing board multiple times. Industrial Light and Magic had to develop entirely new software and rendering techniques specifically for this sequence. They created innovative programs for generating realistic dust clouds, developed new methods for animating mechanical parts on the pod racers, and pioneered techniques for compositing computer-generated vehicles into practical desert locations filmed in Tunisia. The team spent months studying actual racing footage to understand how vehicles behave at high speeds, analyzing everything from suspension movement to tire interactions with different terrain types. The breakthrough came when the effects artists realized they needed to treat the pod racers like actual cars, rather than spaceships. This meant programming realistic weight, momentum, and mechanical stress into every movement. They added subtle details like loose cables whipping in the wind, mechanical parts vibrating under stress, and realistic damage accumulation throughout the race. These minute details, invisible to conscious observation, made the subconscious difference between believable and artificial. One of the most challenging aspects was creating the sense of speed while maintaining visual clarity for storytelling. The sequence needed to feel genuinely dangerous and fast-paced while allowing audiences to follow the action and understand spatial relationships between characters. This required careful camera work, strategic editing, and precise timing to balance excitement with comprehension during what became a nearly 20-minute sequence. These behind-the-scenes secrets make Star Wars even more amazing. Drop your favorite weird fact in the comments and remember to subscribe for more mind-blowing revelations from that galaxy far, far away. Number 5. Stormtrooper Marksmanship. Mystery. The infamous accuracy problems of Imperial Stormtroopers have become one of the most enduring memes in science fiction. But the reality behind their seemingly terrible marksmanship reveals fascinating layers of both intentional storytelling and practical filmmaking considerations that most fans never consider. Within the Star Wars universe, there's actually a logical explanation for Stormtrooper accuracy that goes far beyond simple incompetence. During the Death Star escape sequence in A New Hope, Grand Moff Tarkin explicitly orders that the Millennium Falcon be allowed to escape so that Imperial forces can track it to the Rebel base. This means that the Stormtroopers pursuing Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca were deliberately missing their shots while making the escape appear genuinely dangerous and chaotic. This explanation becomes even more compelling when you examine Stormtrooper effectiveness in situations where they're not under orders to let targets escape. At the beginning of A New Hope, these same troops efficiently overwhelm Rebel defenders aboard Princess Leia's blockade runner, demonstrating tactical competence and accurate shooting. Similarly, during the Battle of Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, Imperial forces successfully breach Rebel defenses and force a complete evacuation of the base. From a practical filmmaking perspective, Stormtrooper accuracy was carefully calibrated to maintain dramatic tension without creating logical plot holes. If Imperial troops were realistically effective, the main characters would have been killed within minutes of their first encounter. Lucas and his team needed to create the illusion of danger while ensuring the heroes survived to continue their journey. This required a delicate balance of making firefights feel intense and threatening while keeping the protagonists alive through seemingly miraculous luck. The armor design itself contributes to the accuracy problems in subtle ways. Stormtrooper helmets, while intimidating and iconic, actually limit peripheral vision and muffle hearing according to actors who wore them during filming. The armor's bulk restricts movement and flexibility, making precise aiming more difficult during combat situations. These design choices prioritize psychological warfare and standardization over individual combat effectiveness, reflecting the Empire's philosophy of control through fear rather than personal skill. Interestingly, different types of Imperial troops demonstrate varying levels of competence throughout the saga. Scout troopers on Endor show significantly better accuracy and tactical awareness than standard Stormtroopers, while specialized units like Death Troopers in Rogue One are genuinely formidable opponents. This suggests that the Empire's military effectiveness varies considerably based on training, equipment, and mission parameters, with elite units receiving better equipment and more intensive preparation. Number 6. Lucas's hidden cameos. George Lucas made subtle appearances throughout his own Star Wars saga, but these cameos were so cleverly disguised and expertly hidden that even dedicated fans often miss them during repeated viewings. Unlike directors who make obvious appearances for comedic effect, Lucas preferred to embed himself into the background of scenes in ways that required detective work to discover. In The Phantom Menace, Lucas appears as one of the Naboo civilians during the celebration sequence at the film's conclusion. He's barely visible in the crowd shots, wearing traditional Naboo clothing and partially obscured by other celebrants. This cameo required careful timing and positioning, to ensure that his recognizable features wouldn't distract from the scene's emotional impact. The appearance lasts only a few seconds and requires freeze-frame analysis to confirm his identity definitively. The most famous Lucas cameo occurs in Revenge of the Sith, where he appears as Baron Papa Noida, a blue-skinned alien attending the opera with Chancellor Palpatine and Anakin Skywalker. This appearance required extensive makeup and prosthetics that completely transformed Lucas's appearance, taking several hours to apply each filming day. The character was given a backstory in expanded universe materials, where Baron Papa Noida became a minor but recurring figure in Clone Wars-era politics, even appearing in the Clone Wars animated series. Lucas also made audio cameos throughout the saga, providing voices for various background characters and alien creatures. In The Empire Strikes Back, he's one of the Imperial officers heard giving orders during the asteroid chase sequence, though his voice was heavily processed through radio filters. These vocal appearances were often so heavily modified or filtered that they became nearly impossible to identify without inside knowledge of the production process. One of the most subtle Lucas appearances occurs in Return of the Jedi, where eagle-eyed fans claim to spot him as an Imperial officer during the Death Star sequences. However, this particular cameo remains disputed among fans and hasn't been officially confirmed by Lucasfilm, making it one of the most debated Easter eggs in the entire saga. The director's approach to cameos reflects his overall philosophy about filmmaking. Every element should serve the story rather than drawing attention to itself. Unlike directors who use cameos for self-promotion or comedy, Lucas treated his appearances as Easter eggs for the most observant fans. These hidden appearances became a game for enthusiasts, who would spend hours analyzing background characters and crowd scenes searching for their creator. This approach demonstrated Lucas's commitment to maintaining immersion while rewarding the most dedicated viewers with special discoveries. Number 7. Yoda's puppet complexity. The creation and operation of Yoda's puppet represented one of the most sophisticated achievements in practical effects history, requiring innovations in puppetry that pushed the boundaries of what was possible with traditional filmmaking techniques. What appeared on screen as a simple, wise Jedi master was actually the result of incredibly complex mechanical engineering and masterful puppeteering. Frank Oz, already famous for his work with the Muppets, served as Yoda's primary puppeteer and voice actor, but the character's most complex scenes required a team of up to 3 operators working in perfect synchronization. The main puppet included cable-controlled facial features, allowing for subtle expressions that brought genuine emotion to Yoda's performance. Oz controlled the primary movements and provided the voice, while additional puppeteers managed specific facial elements like ear movements and eye expressions through a sophisticated system of cables and remote controls. The technical complexity becomes apparent when examining the puppet's internal mechanisms. Yoda's face contained dozens of tiny cables and servos that controlled individual muscle groups, allowing for remarkably nuanced expressions that rivaled live-actor performances. The puppet's eyes could move independently, his ears could twitch and rotate, and his mouth could form specific shapes for different phonemes. This level of detail required constant maintenance and adjustment between takes, as the delicate mechanisms were prone to malfunction under the stress of repeated use and the humid conditions of the Dagobah set. During the Empire Strikes Back production, the puppet operators had to work in extremely cramped conditions beneath and behind the Dagobah set pieces. Oz often spent hours in uncomfortable positions, guiding Yoda's movements while delivering dialogue simultaneously. The physical demands were so intense that multiple backup puppets were constructed to allow for repairs and modifications without stopping production, with each puppet costing thousands of dollars to build and maintain. The most challenging scenes involved Yoda interacting with physical objects in his environment. When Yoda lifts Luke's X-Wing from the Dagobah swamp, the puppet had to maintain consistent positioning and expression, while wire work and optical effects created the illusion of force powers. These sequences required precise timing between puppeteers, camera operators, and effects technicians to achieve seamless integration between practical and visual effects. One of the most impressive technical achievements was making Yoda appear to walk naturally. The puppet's legs were non-functional, so walking scenes required a combination of careful camera angles, strategic editing, and sometimes a separate mechanical walking rig, operated by additional crew members. When Yoda needed to move across longer distances, the puppeteers developed innovative techniques for creating the illusion of natural locomotion while keeping the puppet's limitations completely hidden from view. Number 8. Alderaan's political influence. Alderaan's portrayal in Star Wars reflects some of the most sophisticated political world-building in the saga, with the peaceful planet's governmental structure and cultural values serving as a deliberate counterpoint to the Empire's authoritarian rule. The planet's political system was carefully designed to represent idealized democratic principles while highlighting the tragic consequences of galactic conflict. Princess Leia's homeworld operated under a constitutional monarchy that balanced traditional royal authority with representative democratic institutions. Queen Breha Organa and her husband Bail served as ceremonial heads of state, while actual governance was conducted through elected councils representing different regions and interest groups across the planet. This system was specifically designed to prevent the concentration of power that enabled Palpatine's rise to imperial authority, incorporating checks and balances that had evolved over centuries of Alderaanian political development. The planet's commitment to pacifism wasn't naive idealism, but rather a sophisticated political philosophy based on their history of internal conflicts. Alderaan had experienced devastating civil wars in their distant past, leading to a cultural evolution that prioritized diplomatic solutions and conflict prevention over military might. Their approach to galactic politics involved extensive humanitarian aid, cultural exchange programs, and economic development initiatives designed to address the root causes of interplanetary tensions rather than simply treating their symptoms. Alderaan's political influence extended far beyond their military capabilities through soft power projection that made them valuable allies and dangerous enemies to authoritarian regimes. The planet served as a neutral meeting ground for diplomatic negotiations, hosted refugee populations from war-torn worlds, and provided educational opportunities for young leaders from across the galaxy. This network of relationships gave Alderaan significant influence in galactic affairs despite their relatively small military forces and peaceful philosophy. The decision to destroy Alderaan was strategically calculated to demonstrate the Death Star's power while eliminating a major center of rebel support and democratic idealism. Tarkin chose Alderaan specifically because its destruction would send a message to other peaceful worlds that neutrality would not protect them from imperial retaliation. The planet's reputation for diplomacy and humanitarian aid made its destruction particularly shocking to galactic public opinion, potentially creating more enemies for the Empire. Bail Organa's role in the Rebel Alliance exemplified Alderaan's political philosophy in action. Rather than engaging in direct military confrontation, he focused on building coalitions, providing resources, and maintaining communication networks that enabled coordinated resistance across multiple star systems. His approach demonstrated how smaller powers could effectively challenge larger ones through strategic alliance building and careful resource management, rather than brute force. The destruction of Alderaan represented more than just a military victory for the Empire. It eliminated a political model that offered a genuine alternative to authoritarian rule throughout the galaxy.